Welcome back to the Cannabis Podcast. We have some breaking news out of the Czech Republic from back in July, actually, that cannabis legalization will take effect on January 1st, 2026. Czech Republic president has officially signed legislation that will reshape the nation's approach to personal cannabis use and medical psilocybin. The reform, which takes effect January 1st, 2026, represents a significant milestone in European drug policy evolution. All right, before we get deeper into this, I appreciate you being here. Please subscribe, like the video, and share it with your friends so we can beat this algorithm. Thanks for being here. Let's continue. The new law allows adults over 21 to cultivate up to 3 cannabis plants at home and possess up to 100 grams of dried flower in private residences, with public possession limits set at 25 grams. That is a lot. Wow, good for you, Czech Republic. Perhaps even more notable, the legislation also permits medical use of psilocybin, positioning the Czech Republic among the first European nations to embrace psychedelic therapy. That is awesome. Let's keep going. The presidential signature concludes months of legislative progress that saw overwhelming parliamentary support, with the Chamber of Deputies approving the measure 142 votes out of 159. The Senate followed with its own approval before sending the bill to the president's desk for approval. That is so cool and really groundbreaking in the Czech Republic. I've never been there. If you're listening from there, congratulations. Please comment. Let us know what you think. How is the industry there? I don't know much about the Czech Republic. I would love to learn more. A step forward with concerning restrictions. While home cultivation represents a massive victory for personal freedom, the law's penalty structure reveals troubling inconsistencies. Growing 4 to 5 plants triggers misdemeanor charges, while more than 5 plants becomes a felony. Possessing up to 101 and 200 grams of cannabis at home in the Czech Republic results in misdemeanor penalties. So they're still penalizing you if you're over. That's interesting. I thought it was decriminalized. These restrictions seem counterproductive when considering that patients often require larger quantities for effective treatment. A cancer patient using high-dose therapy for someone making edibles or chronic pain management could easily exceed these arbitrary limits while engaged in perfectly reasonable medical use. Right. Essentially criminalizing patients who need more than the government deems appropriate. Rather than supporting reasonable cultivation practices, these restrictions create unnecessary legal jeopardy for these individuals. So a great example is if you have glaucoma or arthritis and you have to constantly smoke throughout the day, you're not smoking because you're getting stoned the whole day, having fun playing video games. No, you literally are in pain, or for PTSD, you're in pain and you need to smoke when that pain arrives. Just like you need to take a pill if you're in pain for whatever the reason is you're in pain. Let's continue. The inclusion of medical psilocybin represents perhaps the most progressive aspect of the reform, and research has shown promising results for psilocybin therapy and treatment. So if you're here, you probably know that. If you're new here, that's going to be a big thing. By allowing supervised medical use, the Czech Republic acknowledges the therapeutic potential of psychedelics. Countries worldwide are reconsidering their stance on these issues as clinical evidence demonstrates their effectiveness for treatment-resistant mental health conditions. Right? I agree. The Czech medical system now has the opportunity to integrate psychedelic therapy into conventional treatment protocols, potentially offering hope to patients who have exhausted traditional options. Interesting. I don't know much about the medical system there either, whether it's government-sponsored or privatized. I would guess it's a little bit more government-sponsored since it's in Europe, but if you know, please let me know. And Europe continues leading cannabis reform, which, America, you really got to pick up the baton and run a little bit faster on this. Business is getting in the way of progress. Europe continues. The Czech Republic joins a growing number of European nations embracing evidence-based drug policy. Germany legalized personal cannabis possession and cultivation in April 24, becoming the largest European country to implement such reforms. Malta and Luxembourg have also adopted national legalization measures, while the Netherlands and Switzerland continue expanding their regional pilot programs. Now, we did a video on Malta and on Luxembourg. If you haven't watched them, go check them out. We covered that. That's pretty cool. The European momentum represents a fundamental shift from decades of prohibition-focused policies. These countries recognize that criminalizing personal cannabis use often creates more problems than it solves, while diverting law enforcement resources from serious crimes, such as, the big ones that we should be using resources for. Good point in that article. The Czech reform also reflects larger criminal justice modernization efforts aimed at reducing prison overcrowding and focusing resources on genuinely harmful behavior, emphasizing that the amendment helps criminal law better distinguish between truly socially harmful behavior and cases that do not belong in criminal proceedings at all. That's a great nuanced approach. Congrats. From legal confusion to clear framework, the Czech Republic's relationship with cannabis has been complicated by years of legal ambiguity. The country initially decriminalized small amounts in 2010, allowing possessions up to 15 grams without penalties. However, a 2013 constitutional court ruling created uncertainty by determining that only formal legislation could define criminal offenses. They're basically saying, go make laws. We can't just keep doing this. This legal gray area left citizens and law enforcement confused about enforcement standards. The Supreme Court later established even stricter guidelines, reducing non-criminal possession to 10 grams. The new legislation finally provides clear, legally sound parameters that eliminate this confusion. Now they just need to be held up in court. That's a different issue. Conservative approach to commercial markets. While significant progress, the current legislation deliberately avoids commercial cannabis sales. This mirrors Germany's two-phase legalization strategy, which began with personal use rights before planning commercial pilot programs. That's not necessarily too bad, but nuanced. The Czech Republic initially announced plans for comprehensive cannabis legalization in 2022 following Germany's regulatory framework. However, political divisions and implementation challenges led to this more conservative approach, focusing on personal freedom rather than market development. This cautious strategy may actually prove more sustainable than rushing into commercial regulations. By establishing clear personal use rights first, the country can evaluate outcomes and public acceptance before considering retail markets. Hear, hear. Louder for the people in the back. The January 2026 implementation date provides adequate time for developing enforcement guidelines and public education campaigns. That's months away. Czech officials will need to train law enforcement on new possession limits while ensuring citizens understand their rights and responsibilities under the reformed law. This preparation period also allows time for the Czech Republic to medical psilocybin protocols. Healthcare providers will need training on appropriate patient selection, treatment administration, and safety monitoring for psychedelic therapy programs. The Czech Republic's measured approach to cannabis reform demonstrates how countries can implement meaningful policy changes while maintaining public safety and political consensus. By focusing on personal freedom and medical access rather than commercial interests, the legislation addresses prohibition's core problems without complex market regulations. As implementation approaches, the Czech Republic has positioned itself as a leader in progressive European policy and drugs. The combination of cannabis decriminalization and psychedelic medicine access creates a comprehensive framework that prioritizes individual rights, medical evidence, and public health over punitive enforcement. This reform will undoubtedly influence cannabis policy discussions throughout Europe and beyond, offering a practical model for countries seeking alternatives to failed prohibition policies. Hear, hear, hear. Hip, hip, hooray. What a great article by Beard Bros Farms. Not Pharma, Farms. What a great article. Thank you for writing that article. That is great. Look at all the reform going on in the Czech Republic and in Europe. And that I am so happy for that in general. However, why aren't we doing that in the United States? We have, I know why, because at the end it said putting personal rights and freedoms and health benefits before business, commercial, and market interests is probably never going to happen in the United States, unfortunately. It would be a lot better for actually business and markets in general if it would, because it would be healthier markets, no pun intended, but it really would. Also, I will pin the actual law. You might have to translate it from wherever you are to your language from the article, which is what I did. I translated it to English. But just hit the translate button and you can read it. It's pretty cool, interesting to see all the laws and text there. But anyways, congratulations to the Czech Republic and Europe and the cannabis industry in general. I think this is almost an overlooked story. Even though the Czech Republic is small, I think it still has a big impact on Europe because it just said that they're going to use this as a good framework to expand and compound upon, which is great. If it puts our, personal interests and health above business, let's do it. All right, cool. Congratulations, Czech Republic. I'll pin all the articles in the description for you to check out. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends. We're striving for more subscribers and growing the channel. No pun intended. Again. Okay, I'm going to go. Until next time, stay blessed, and don't forget to tip your bud tenders.